Good morning. It is 2:45 a.m. here in Miami Beach. I just walked in. I am fairly tired, but at the same time, I'm super excited to have a quick discussion on some unprecedented news in the Middle East. So on May 20th, 2024, the ICC, the International Criminal Court, head prosecutor Karim indicted Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his defense minister Yoav Gallant with accusations of various war crimes, including using starvation as a weapon of war and the deliberate targeting of civilians. This is in the war in Gaza. This is truly unprecedented stuff. Lots to unpack here, and I'd love to discuss exactly what the context is, what happens, and the implications forward. So first and foremost, just a little bit of historical context and a little bit of vocabulary so we have enough tools to kind of have a fruitful discussion here. So we have the ICC and the ICJ often confused and conflated. Just really quickly, the ICJ is the International Court of Justice established in 1945. The irony has not gone over me, or this is an international judicial court established post World War II to navigate some of the issues and atrocities that happened to the Jewish people in World War II. And it's essentially a court, an international court that adjudicates state-to-state affairs. So it doesn't prosecute individuals. It just deals with stuff like maritime disputes, territorial disputes, treaty violations. And it also acts as like a legal advisory to the UN. So it provides non-binding just opinions and legal rulings and whatnot. So that's the ICJ. Then we have the ICC, the International Criminal Court, and that is an independent international tribunal, and it adjudicates matters on of individuals who have committed war crimes. So it's an international body, and it handles crimes at an individual level, and it covers four broad categories: war crimes, genocide, crimes against humanity, that's crimes against civilians, and the crime of aggression, essentially those in power who have committed grave aggressive crimes. There are 123 countries who recognize the jurisdiction of this court, and they've signed on to the Rome Statute, and this court was established in 2002. Particularly since it's a tribunal, there is a prosecuting division, and the head prosecutor, Karim is the one who indicted Benjamin Netanyahu, Yoav Gallant, and actually a few others in the Palestinian territories. So we have in the Palestinian political bureau in Qatar, we have Ismail Haniyeh, and then you have in Gaza, you have the militant leaders of Yahya Sinwar and Mohammed Daif. So they've been indicted for the October 7th atrocities, and Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant are being indicted for the current war that followed. So one quick point here, I brought up the ICJ, and that's because South Africa has brought up a case against Israel in the ICJ earlier this year, accusing it of violating the Genocide Convention of 1948, and that is an ongoing process right now. There was a preliminary hearing, and just everyone's arguing about what the actual language means, but essentially South Africa is trying to accuse Israel of war crimes, is alleging that Israel committed war crimes, and they're trying to get the court to have them stop the current offensive that is going on in Gaza. And then just on the 20th, we had the ICC, Karim bring charges towards individuals in the Israeli government. So this gets interesting. So first of all, I mentioned that the America and Israel who don't recognize the jurisdiction of the ICC, yet charges were brought forth on them, and that's because the Palestinian territories do recognize the jurisdiction of the ICC, and that was set forth. They have signed on to the Rome Statute in 2015. Another really important piece of context here that does matter is the U.S.'s relationship with the ICC. So it's a very peculiar and strained one, but the Bush administration specifically pretty much waged war with the ICC. First and foremost, it made other countries sign agreements that they would never extradite U.S. nationals to The Hague, because if the ICC does issue an arrest warrant, if any individual enters the territory of a nation that does recognize the jurisdiction of the ICC, that country is legally required to arrest that individual and extradite him to the ICC. So this recently happened with Putin, where the ICC issued arrest warrants for him, and it creates a kind of a looming sense of paranoia where now these leaders are kind of banned off from 123 countries, because if they do enter this country, they can get arrested at any time. So Israel, the United States made countries sign agreements that they would not do this, and even more so, they passed, at least it's colloquially known as the what's it called? It's called the Hague Invasion Act. So essentially, if any U.S. national gets extradited to The Hague, it's essentially a declaration of war where America will invade the Netherlands. And again, I'm not making an opinion here. I'm just stating the facts, and whether it's right or wrong is entirely up to you. I'm not making any inference on that whatsoever. So yes, and the ICC. So. And also just recently, just to point out, during the Trump administration, even Pompeo announced that they issued sanctions on, at the time, I forgot her name, I have to check here, her name is Fatou Bensouda, and she was commencing a probe into looking into some of the issues that went on during the Afghanistan war, and she was essentially sanctioned. And even just recently now, with Karim Khan making this announcement, or when it was speculated that he would make the announcement, you had like 12 Republicans go and say, if you come after us, we're coming after you. So this is all to say the U.S.'s relationship with the ICC is not a great one, but it's moved along. And it's interesting when Karim Khan in particular was kind of endorsed by the UK and the US when he was initially appointed as the head prosecutor. And that was when the rhetoric was kind of in favor of prosecuting America's adversaries. And now we're seeing a bit of a shift here. In fact, we're seeing an unprecedented shift where for the first time, the ICC is going after a Western leader. So, and this is part of a lot of the issues within the ICC. So and this will kind of like segue into some of the real bigger issues that are going on here, and that is that the ICC is we're at a point where these essential bodies that we've established post World War II for a stable post World War II era is kind of starting to fall apart from the top up. And it's very concerning. It truly is unprecedented waters here. And first of all, the ICC is heavily underfunded. And there's a lot of critique sent its way because first of all, it took 10 years for it to even have its first conviction. And it seems to really go after a lot of African countries without a lot of diplomatic sway in the international arena, and when war crimes are essentially committed everywhere. Brings us to the heart of the conversation here. I don't think the focus should be the direct implication of Karim Khan's indictments at the ICC or South Africa's allegations at the ICJ. I think even more so, the real focus here is the precedents that it sets forth. It's the manufacturization and the normalization of conversation. How we're like injecting new vocabulary into the political landscape that didn't exist before, that wasn't possible before. We're manufacturing new language. We're essentially shifting the Overton window of discourse. And, and I would even make the argument that if not for South Africa's bringing forth their case of genocide at the ICJ, Karim Khan's ability to pursue his indictments at the ICC would not have been possible. It wouldn't have even been within the frame of conversation. In fact, since 2015, the Palestinian territories have been pushing the ICC to pursue action against the state of Israel or against officials at Israel, at the ICC and at the ICJ. And both of these bodies have been dragging their feet. They haven't been willing to pursue this. But now that the conversation has shifted, it's in the landscape for these conversations. And even just today, Spain and 3 other countries just formally recognized Palestine as a state. The tools for discourse wouldn't have made this possible just 3 weeks ago. And that's how these things work. They set into effect, they manufacture tools for conversation, and that sets forth a whole new playing field of conversation, a whole new arena of possibilities. And I think that's what the focus should be, and that really is the issue or the implications of all this, rather than just what's going on. Because getting a prosecution at the ICJ is going to take 10 years. The ICC is not really going to have much. In fact, the ICC is in a real bind right now. The U.S. will respond, and the question is, how will it respond? And it's almost like dismantling the ICC and the ICJ can be absolutely horrible, I would imagine, because it's kind of what keeps us as much as it's frayed and ineffective and inept and feckless, at the same time, it does create some playing field for conversation in a time where we're accelerating at high velocity in a really dangerous territory where countries are not getting along in ways that we haven't seen since post-World War II. So breaking down the system from the top up, heading to a post-World War II era is really uncharted territory. And it's a little, I would say, concerning and scary.